My fiancée texted me, saying, "I met with a lawyer to understand what happens to your inheritance after marriage." At that very moment, I made my decision, but I smiled and replied, "You're very smart." Later, I called my father and said, "Change everything." When my fiancée's lawyer told her the news, all her plans fell apart in an instant. I'm 34, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I had my future figured out. I'd been with Rachel for 2 years. We got engaged last November after what I thought was a romantic, genuine proposal on my part. She cried, said yes, told me I was everything she'd ever wanted. We set a date for June. Everything seemed perfect. My father is wealthy. Not famous wealthy, but comfortable enough that money hasn't been a concern for our family in decades. He built a commercial real estate business from nothing, and I work alongside him managing properties. I've always known I'd inherit a significant portion when he passes, but it's not something I advertise. Rachel knew my family had money. It's hard to hide when you grow up in a certain neighborhood, but I never flaunted it. I drove a decent car, lived in a nice but not extravagant condo, and tried to keep things low-key. That text came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was at a property inspection when my phone buzzed. "Hey babe, just FYI, I met with a lawyer today to understand what happens to your inheritance after we get married. Want to make sure we're protected." Smiling face with smiling eyes. I stared at that message for a full minute. Protected? We. The words felt wrong. I hadn't asked her to meet with a lawyer. We hadn't discussed prenups, inheritance, or anything financial beyond our joint wedding budget. This was her own initiative. I texted back, "You're very smart." She replied almost instantly, "I know, right? Just being responsible. Love you, Red Heart." I sat in my truck and called my father. He picked up on the second ring. "Dad, I need you to change everything." "What are you talking about?" "The will, the trust, the business succession plan, everything that has my name on it as a beneficiary. I need you to restructure it." There was a pause. "What happened?" "Rachel just told me she met with a lawyer about my inheritance, without talking to me first." My father didn't ask questions. He said, "I'll call Richard tonight. Come by the house tomorrow." That evening, Rachel came over with takeout. She was cheerful, talked about wedding flowers, asked if I'd confirmed the venue deposit. I smiled, nodded, played along. I asked casually, "So what did the lawyer say?" She lit up. "Oh, it was so helpful. Basically, in our state, anything you inherit during marriage stays separate property unless you commingle it. But if we buy a house together or you invest inheritance money into joint assets, I'd have a claim. So we just need to be smart about how we structure things." "And you went alone?" "Yeah, I just wanted to get informed. You've been so busy with work, I didn't want to bother you." She smiled. "Plus, I figured I'd surprise you with how prepared I am." "That's thoughtful," I said. She leaned in and kissed me. "I'm just looking out for us." The next day, I met my father and his estate attorney, Richard. We spent 3 hours restructuring everything. The inheritance was moved into an irrevocable trust with strict conditions. I'd still benefit, but nothing would be in my name directly until specific milestones were met. Milestones that included remaining unmarried or having an airtight prenup reviewed by independent counsel. My father also adjusted his will to leave the bulk of his estate to a charitable foundation he'd been considering anyway, with me as a trustee but not an outright beneficiary. Richard looked at me seriously. "If you marry her without a prenup, you'll be walking away from approximately $8 million in future inheritance." "I understand," I said. "And you're sure about this?" "Completely." I didn't confront Rachel. Not yet. I wanted to see how far this went. I started paying attention to things I'd missed before. She'd been secretive with her phone lately. She'd started asking more questions about my father's properties, how much they were worth, what the portfolio looked like. She'd even suggested we start looking at houses just to get an idea, even though we'd agreed to wait until after the wedding. A week later, I was at her apartment and her laptop was open on the counter. She was in the shower. I know it's wrong. I know it's a violation. But I looked. Her email was open to a thread with someone named Brandon. I scrolled. Brandon was the lawyer. But the emails weren't just about inheritance law. They were flirtatious. Inside jokes. References to last weekend, and next time we should go back to that hotel. One email from Rachel, dated 2 months ago. "I can't wait to be done with this. Once the ring is on and the papers are signed, we can stop sneaking around." Brandon had replied, "Just a few more months, babe. Then you're set." I took photos of everything with my phone. Then I closed the laptop and sat down on her couch. When she came out, hair wrapped in a towel, I was calm. "Hey, do you want to grab dinner?" she asked. "Sure," I said. "Let's go to that Italian place you love." Update 1. I spent the next week gathering information. I hired a private investigator, something I never thought I'd do, and within 4 days I had confirmation. Rachel and Brandon had been seeing each other for at least 7 months. Hotel receipts, restaurant charges on her credit card when she'd told me she was working late or visiting her sister. Photos of them entering his apartment building together. The investigator also uncovered something else. Rachel had significant credit card debt, about $45,000 spread across multiple cards. She'd been making minimum payments and living beyond her means for years. Suddenly, her interest in my financial security made perfect sense. I didn't tell anyone except my father and my younger sister, Claire. Claire wanted me to blow everything up immediately. "Confront her at work," she said. "Put the emails on a projector." But I'm not that person. I wanted this to be clean. I scheduled a meeting with a family law attorney and drafted a prenuptial agreement. It was thorough. Separate properties stayed separate. No alimony regardless of marriage length. If she cheated, she'd leave with nothing but what she brought in. I had the infidelity evidence ready, but didn't plan to use it unless necessary. Then I invited Rachel to dinner at a nice restaurant. She dressed up, thought it was a date night. I brought the prenup in a folder. "I need to talk to you about something important," I said after we'd ordered. She looked concerned. "Is everything okay?" "My father and I have been talking. With the wedding coming up, we need to get a prenup signed." Her face changed. "A prenup? We've never discussed that." "I know. But given the family assets and your recent interest in inheritance law, it makes sense to protect both of us." "Protect both of us?" She laughed, but it sounded forced. "What do I need protection from? You're the one with the money." I slid the folder across the table. "Just read it over. Take it to Brandon if you want. Get his legal opinion." She froze. "Brandon? Your lawyer? The one you've been emailing?" Her face went white. "I don't know what you're talking about." I pulled out my phone and showed her one of the photos I'd taken. The email where she'd called him babe. She grabbed for my phone. I pulled it back. "Don't," I said quietly. "We're in public." She stood up. "You went through my computer? And you've been planning to marry me while sleeping with your lawyer. So I guess we're both guilty of something." People at nearby tables were starting to look. Rachel sat back down, her hands shaking. "It's not what you think," she whispered. "Then explain it." She couldn't. She tried. Mumbled something about Brandon being an old friend, about it being complicated, about her just being scared of losing herself in a marriage, but nothing she said made sense. I let her talk herself in circles. "Finally," I said, "the prenup is non-negotiable. Sign it, or the wedding is off. You have 1 week to decide." I left her sitting there. I paid the bill on my way out. Update 2. Rachel didn't call me that night. Or the next day. On the third day, I got a text from Brandon's law office. A formal letter asking to schedule a meeting to discuss the prenuptial agreement and potential concerns. I replied through my own attorney. "No meeting necessary. The terms are final." Rachel showed up at my condo 2 days later. She'd been crying. She looked like she hadn't slept. "Please," she said. "Can we just talk?" I let her in. She sat on my couch and tried to explain. Brandon was a mistake. She was stressed about money. She got scared when she realized how much wealth my family had and worried I'd control everything. She wanted to protect herself. The affair meant nothing. "Do you love him?" I asked. "No. I love you." "Then why meet with a lawyer secretly? Why plan around my inheritance without talking to me?" She didn't have an answer. "The prenup stands," I said. "Sign it, or we're done." She left without another word. For days later, her sister called me. I barely knew her sister. We'd met maybe twice. "You need to know something," she said. "Rachel's been telling everyone you're financially abusing her, that you're forcing her to sign away her rights. She's playing the victim." "Let her," I said. "She's also telling people you cheated on her. That's why she wants the prenup." That, I hadn't expected. But it didn't matter. I had the evidence. If she wanted to go scorched earth, I could too. The wedding was supposed to be in 3 weeks. I called the venue and canceled. Lost the deposit, but I didn't care. I called the photographer, the caterer, the florist. I sent a group email to everyone on the guest list. "The wedding has been called off. Thank you for your understanding." Rachel called me screaming. "You can't just cancel everything." I just did. "You're going to regret this. You're going to lose everything." Actually, I said. I already made sure I won't. She hung up. Final update. It's been 2 months. Rachel tried to sue me for the cost of her wedding dress and some deposits she'd put down herself. My attorney sent her copies of the emails with Brandon and the affair evidence. She dropped the suit immediately. I heard through mutual friends that she and Brandon are no longer together. Apparently, once the wedding and the payday was off the table, he lost interest. She moved back in with her parents and is working to pay down her debt. My father officially restructured his estate. Most of it will go to charity when he passes, which honestly feels right. I'll still be comfortable, but I'm not inheriting millions anymore. And I don't care. The freedom of knowing someone can't target me for money is worth more than any inheritance. I'm not dating anyone. I'm not interested right now. But I'm relieved. I keep thinking about that text message, the one that started all of this. If she'd never sent it, if she'd just waited until after the wedding, I might never have known. I'd be married to someone who saw me as a bank account. I dodged something terrible, and I know it. Edit 1. A few people have asked if I feel bad about going through her laptop. Honestly, no. If I hadn't, I'd be married to someone who is actively planning to use me. I'm not proud of invading her privacy, but I'm not losing sleep over it either. Edit 2. For those asking about my father's reaction, he wasn't surprised. He told me he'd had a bad feeling about Rachel from the beginning, but didn't want to interfere. He said the way she asked questions about money always felt transactional. I wish he'd said something earlier, but I get why he didn't. Parents can't live your life for you.